Hi, I'm Trixie, certified strange gal and pop culture extraordinaire. Yeah, I know, I'm out in my living room. I don't usually film out here, but like the monkeys, I needed a change of scenery. So, the last video I did was all about music, and we're keeping up that theme for this one too. I want to talk about one of my favorite bands, The Doors. You know, I go on a lot of road trips, right? And when you go on a long road trip, you gotta have plenty of music with you. That's why when I'm driving for a while, I love to marathon The Doors. Now you might be thinking, how do you go about that? There's so many different options, right? Do you stick with the studio albums? Do you throw the live ones in there? Do you stop when Jim passes away? Do you just keep going? Do you go all in? Well, let me tell you what I do. I have a very special Trixie order that I like to enjoy The Doors in, and I'm going to share that with you. So, first things first, I like to start all the way back at the very beginning. Now, I don't mean the first official album, the one with Light My Fire on it. No, I go back 2 years before that. You see, before they took off, before they got a record contract, they recorded a little mini LP. It had 6 songs on it. You can find all of the songs on, I think it was the box set that came out in 1997. But I like to start here because you never hear The Doors sound like this again. Very heavy on piano and harmonica. They almost don't sound like the same band, you know. I don't think Robby Krieger's there yet. But the interesting thing is, all 6 songs on that little demo ended up on the later albums, right? But on here, they don't sound anything like you'd be used to. Jim doesn't even sing in the same tone of voice. You almost don't know who it is. So, this is a cool place to start if you really want to start at the beginning of the band. After that, we move through things as normal, right? We go through The Doors, which was the first official album, Strange Days, Waiting for the Sun, I think The Soft Parade is next, then Morrison Hotel, and then Absolutely Live, which I feel like you have to throw in, right? Because even though it's a live album, there's so many unique songs on it. And then after that, LA Woman. And of course, this brings us to the end of Jim Morrison. But where do you go from here? Well, the first stop I make is, I read on a blog once, a fan proposed one more album with Jim called Whiskey, Mystics, and Men. Basically a what if, where the 3 remaining members were told, well, you can go and do your own thing, but we want one more album where you find all of the leftovers that you did with Jim, right? And it makes such a great ending. Let me find the track list here, so I'll put that up on the screen. Now, I think I actually tweaked it a little bit from what the blog said, because theirs didn't really flow, but here's what you gotta find. All of these are on like official rarity CDs and stuff, so they're all out there. You can probably find them on iTunes. So then, of course, we move right into the 2 albums they did after Jim, Other Voices and Full Circle. But then you might be saying, but The Doors break up at that point. Where do you go from there? I mean, do you just jump a few years to An American Prayer? No, we need to make a musical bridge to An American Prayer, and I'll tell you how. See, if you're familiar with the history of the band, you might be aware that after Full Circle, Ray Manzarek decided enough is enough and decided to go off on his own. John and Robby, on the other hand, started calling themselves the Butts Band and put out 2 albums under that name. So you might think, okay, those must be the official continuation, right? I mean, Ray's gone, the other 2 just kept going. Wrong. You see, those albums purposely get as far away from the Doors sound as possible, especially the second one. The second album, Here and Now, is more like an R&B kind of album, so they just don't fit. I mean, as far as the flow goes, they're just not gonna fit. But how do you keep the flow going? That just means you have to follow the Ray path instead of the John and Robby path. You see, after he left The Doors, Ray Manzarek put out 2 albums, one right after another, called The Golden Scarab, and then, oh, this is a long title, what is it? The Whole Thing Started with Rock and Roll, Now It's Out of Control. Those two albums carry on the style introduced in Full Circle completely. Smooth transition right into those two albums. I mean, they almost sound like they would have been the Doors' next albums, right? And in fact, the songs are packed full of Doors references. Like, there's a song called Bicentennial Blues, and the whole middle of the song pays tribute to Light My Fire. It's great. So that's where you need to go. After those, Ray started a new band called Night City. Now, you want to listen to their two albums next. They had a self-titled album, then they had one called Golden Days, Diamond Nights. Yeah, a Doors reference again. Now, the first one's a little bit of a bump in the road because it's not really a smooth transition. The first album is really Ray trying very different things, and you don't hear his voice on that one either. So it does kind of stick out like a sore thumb, but keep in mind though, he did write the songs at least, so there is that. Now, the second album, Golden Days, Diamond Nights, gets back into familiar territory, puts us right back on track, and you start to hear Ray's voice again as well. And so, of course, after Night City, we rejoin the Doors. The Doors get back together, they get Jim's voice from his poetry, and they put out a new album called An American Prayer. The reason it's so important to hear those Ray albums before this is you'll notice that in this context, the musical styles he developed across those albums actually carry on to An American Prayer, like Ghost Song in particular makes so much more sense now. And of course, that brings us to the end of the Doors' official studio albums. So it's up to you. Do you stop here, or do you have more time and want to continue? Now, if you do decide to continue, there are some major stops you can still make. For example, first would be 1983's live album, Alive, She Cried. Then this one, it's kind of odd because it feels so unimportant, but it was a major release at the time. The 1987 EP, Live at the Hollywood Bowl. Then there's kind of a long slump, you know, that was the last thing you really saw from the Doors for a while. But then in 2000, we get a proper ending, I think, if you're doing this whole shebang, because they put out an album called Stoned Immaculate, where the three surviving Doors, including some new songs that they worked Jim into, team up with a lot of different artists. Like, I think like Smash Mouth is on there. Like, every single song has like a guest band on it, but they remake their old classics, there's some new songs, and it's so cool, worth checking out. Now, I am satisfied calling that the official end of the Doors catalog. Now, okay, if you're a completist, there is one more CD. I don't personally include this, because I don't really count it as a Doors album. It's more like the Doors as sidemen to somebody else. But shortly before Ray Manzarek passed away, the three remaining Doors did provide background music to an album of poetry called Look Each Other in the Ears by a poet named Michael C. Ford. Now, the Doors aren't really like credited on the cover or anything, but I have owned this CD. It is them doing the music, so if you want something extra, you might want to check that out. But otherwise, we are done. That is Trixie's Doors order. I have bridged the gap between Full Circle and An American Prayer, so if you've never done that before, if you want a new way to hear the Doors' fantastic music, try Trixie order. I have been Trixie. I hope you all enjoyed this video about one of my all-time favorite bands, and you lovely people have a good day.